Well, good morning and welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder, and this is BRN AM for Wednesday, November 6th, 2019. And here are our top stories. Back to school, one woman's journey from digital reporter to investigative journalist, and cost of living considerations when making a move. Natalie Walters spent 4 years working as a digital reporter for Business Insider, The Street, and The Motley Fool. She decided to go back to school to pursue a degree in investigative journalism. She then moved from Brooklyn, New York to Phoenix, Arizona to attend the Arizona State University's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism. Joining me now to discuss her journey and what went into her decision, Natalie Walters. Natalie, great to see you.
Great to see you as well. Glad to be back.
Yeah, great to see you. And Natalie, for those viewers who are maybe not familiar, this is her first appearance on BRN AM. But Natalie previously was a journalist for the Motley Fool, and she covered technology. And we know each other from the podcast BRN, now called the BRN podcast. So Natalie, very pleased to chat with you. And, you know, this is a little bit more focused on you. But you decided after 4 years of hard, difficult journalism at the Motley Fool and writing great articles, you decided to go back to school. What, if you wouldn't mind sharing, what was the rationale? Why go back to the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism?
Sure. So I have been covering, sort of businessy topics for about 3.5 years. I was at Business Insider, then The Street, and then the Motley Fool.
Yeah.
But I definitely noticed there's, obviously a tendency to go for the shorter articles. And I felt like there was always another step I could take in those articles. But I felt like I didn't have the skills I needed to do some of that. I'm talking about skills like knowing how to read financial documents really, really well and what to look for when something's off, and how to get information from the government, how to find good investigative stories. And so I found this program at ASU, and it really all fell into place so nicely. I couldn't have asked for it to work out better. So I wanted to develop my skills as an investigative journalist. I wanted to be able to take stories a step further and to help myself stand out as a journalist.
Yeah, I mean, you were amazing. You are an amazing writer, very thorough, but obviously getting to the next level and being the investigative journalist that you want to be and writing those longer articles is very important. In terms of the rationale, so, we have your rationale, and going back to school after being 4 years in the workforce, obviously that's something you had to contemplate over time. Was that a difficult decision for you? I mean, obviously you had to discuss it yourself within yourself, but also with your family. I just want to kind of get into that decision-making process, because a lot of people out there are considering doing the same thing. Maybe not journalism, but going back for an MBA or a Master's of Science or some other graduate degree. Would you mind talking a little bit about that process that you went through?
Definitely. When I graduated in 2015, I said I will never go back to school. I was done with it, and also as a journalist, I didn't feel like it would ever be worth it for me. I know for a lot of other jobs it would be, or sometimes it's required, but I think for journalists it's a lot about doing, so I didn't think I'd ever do it. But then I just started feeling inadequate with my degree and what I knew, as I kind of rose up further and started working on other stories and just talking to sources that were continually, higher educated than I was, and I just felt I was lacking, and I wanted to beef up my skills and my knowledge. And so that's when I started looking into programs, and I think I probably looked for a year before I actually committed to one. I think if I had found this program at the beginning, I may have been too scared to do it, but because I had been looking and adjusting myself to the idea of going back to school, leaving New York, leaving a steady job, it was much easier for me to accept. And then it just also felt right. I think also if I had spoken to the admissions people here and other students, and I'd gotten, iffy feelings or like, it's okay, I don't think I would have dropped everything to come here, on the other side of the United States. But I mean, it was a perfect fit. When I talked with them the first time, I explained my qualms with journalism and how I was frustrated at, the bipartisan of it all, and the strong left, the strong right, and the agenda. And I felt like I didn't know who to trust. When I just want to know what's happening at the border, or I just want to know what's happening at Facebook. I just want to know the basics.
Right.
And I felt like I was having a hard time finding that. And the people here felt the same way. And they said that's part of the reason they started this program. So it just really fit in great.
Yeah. I mean, you got to pursue your passion, and you're right. I mean, objectivity, very important part of journalism, just providing the facts. I mean, we try to do that on the network, and we've always tried to do that on the podcast. Let's talk a little bit about, so you moved actually from, I think you were living in Brooklyn, New York, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it was Manhattan. No, it was Brooklyn. And then you went to back home to Georgia, and then you had to literally drive cross country to Phoenix, Arizona. What was that like? Talk about your feelings a little bit, like driving across the country and, waiting, you didn't really know what to expect.
Yeah, it's weird because I drove home from New York to Georgia, and it was supposed to be a few friends were going to come with me, but it ended up not working out. So it was just me, and I thought I was going to be, sort of a mess on the way home, crying and stuff, but I actually felt great leaving. I think because I was so excited about my next step, and I knew it was the right thing, and I was really excited about what I was going to be learning. There were no tears, and it wasn't even that nostalgic for me. I think because, like I said, I had been adjusting for about 9 months. I was thinking, I think it's time to leave and find a new challenge, but I'm not sure what yet. And so I had adjusted to that. And then, yeah, I drove from Georgia to Arizona, and it's a long drive. I think I think it was around 30 hours, maybe. Um, yeah, we did a lot of pit stops, and I just felt so excited going there. We stopped in New Orleans and we stopped in Dallas. These are places I'd never been before, and I may not have ever seen if I wasn't driving through. And then when I got here, though, the first night it was when I had the sort of what am I doing with my life? And it's funny because my cousin who had went to grad school said she had that um, before she went to grad school. She had that one night where she had a breakdown and then she was fine. And she said grad school was the best decision she ever made. It really launched her career and she made a lot of new people there. So yeah, I had that one night of what am I doing? Maybe is this going to be a waste of time because I've already been working in journalism a while? Is this going to be worth it for me? But then within the first week here, I was so happy I did it, and I couldn't imagine a better next step for me. I truly couldn't imagine a better one.
That's amazing, and I think it's really cool that a lot of people would fly. I mean, it depends how much stuff you have, but to get from point A to point B, if they were going to school, they would drive, or they would or fly, or take another means. And I think it's really cool that you're able to kind of see America, all points in between, and get to see those cities and localities that you never saw before. What was it? I mean, it must be amazing. You're always have been a very collaborative person, both at work, with us on the show, and the podcast, and George and I when we were doing the podcast initially. What was it like meeting like-minded students? And I'm sure they're not just the same. They're all different ages. They're all different age ranges. They're all, male, female. They're all different points of view. What was that like?
Yeah, it's been amazing just because investigative journalism is different. I think all journalists should consider themselves investigative journalists. But then again, the stories that I would consider, deep investigations are different. And when I was in New York and I had a lot of journalist friends, we never really talked about those stories. But here, because all 19 of us in the program really want to be working on these stories, we talk about them all the time. And I've learned so much just from talking with my fellow students. And we all feel so lucky to be here. And like you said, there's so many different backgrounds. We have a paleontologist, and she, was working in DC for a while with lots of different places, like very impressive. We have someone from the Peace Corps. We have a lawyer and a paralegal. So yeah, it's been amazing. When we've gotten to certain legal topics, they know a lot about that and they're able to help us out. We did a court story the other day, And my friend Lydia was able to help me on that because she's already been working there. And then we actually have someone who was whose job was detecting bank fraud. So that's a super useful skill to have in investigative journalism, and we're really excited about that. So that's been really amazing, and it's already honed my skills so much in terms of, I knew I wanted to be an investigative journalist, but I was like, okay, so now what? What are the stories we're looking for? And yeah, just being around like-minded people, and we were sending each other stories. It's so collaborative. Like we are so supportive of each other. There's no, pushing the other down to get up. We have a WhatsApp group, and we are talking on there all day long, giving each other advice, giving each other sources, sending jokes, ranting about how much homework we have, all of that. So it's been such a great group, and yeah, it's been amazing.
Well, Natalie, we're going to take a quick break. You have a couple more minutes for us. We're going to go to commercial break, and we'll talk to you a little bit more about the program, making the transition. And for the audience, stay tuned. Natalie's a great person, and we're going to talk to her for a few more minutes. So stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network. Well, welcome back. We were talking to Natalie Walters. She's now currently a student at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism. She's pursuing a master's degree in investigative journalism. And Natalie, thanks a lot for joining us today, this morning, and spending a little time with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's fun to talk again, and just getting to explain it is helping me process it more. So thank you.
Yeah, you're quite welcome. So Natalie, you talked about the decision-making process, the switching from being a journalist now to honing your skills as an investigative journalist in this program. Let's talk about moving from New York to Georgia, and then Georgia to Phoenix. What's Phoenix, Arizona like? We have George. We both know George Grombacher, who's been on this program and on the podcast, who lives in Scottsdale. But what has been the biggest change living in Phoenix, other than the time zone change? Because you're 2 or 3 hours behind now.
3 hours now difference, which is more than you think when you're trying to call people. But so I didn't really. I guess I only moved to Georgia to move here. I kind of dropped my stuff off at my family's house. I was there just kind of a few weeks before I came out here. It's definitely way different. Honestly, it's been amazing. I think I loved New York. It'd always be one of my favorite cities, but I had heard someone say when I moved there's a 3-year itch, and I definitely got that 3-year itch. Around 3 years, I still loved it, but I was thinking I'm a little tired of how unreliable the subway is. I'm a little tired also of just how hard it is to get to each other's apartments to hang out. I felt like I was lacking the community I'd had in previous years, just because it's hard to meet up people And so then you end up just meeting at a bar, and I just never feel like I have as much fun or get to know people as well there versus an apartment where you can play games and just sort of let loose. So that was something I was missing, and I love being here because I have a car again, which is great.
Right.
And so I already feel like that community I was missing has come back into my life and more so. And, these 19 people are just so supportive and we hang out all the time. I won't say hang out all the time. It's more like we're working all the time, but together.
Sure. Working groups.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. We don't have that much time to hang out, but, so yeah, that's been great.
What?
Oh, also I was going to say there's a light rail here, which is their subway, and it runs so well. And some people here, think when it's 2 minutes late that's a big deal. And I just want to say, you have no idea.
Yeah.
In New York, it would be, this subway isn't running for the day, or this is an hour late, or, they would change routes. Like the R train's now running on the N line all day long. It would be that, not just an instance here or there. And here I've never had a train be more than 2 minutes late. And they don't, because it is less complicated. Obviously, New York, I mean, here it's just, line running this way, line running this way, but it's very reliable. And that's been such a nice change. But I obviously miss lots of New York too, mainly my friends, and also the food. I think those are the two things I really miss about New York.
What about a lot of people when they move away from New York to the New York area? Did you notice anything about the cost of living? Obviously, you're not working right now. You're in a program. Is there a big adjustment, good or bad, going from the New York world, very higher prices, typically higher cost of living? What's it like in Phoenix?
Yeah, I was thinking Phoenix might be high because it is a big city out here, but it's actually incredibly great prices, very low cost of living. I was shocked at I'm living with two other girls in the program, but I was shocked with our rent. I had to ask them, I think 5 times, like, are you sure this is our rent? No, are you sure? Is there like a hidden fee that's going to come at the end of the month? And no, this is your rent. And it's easily, 2 or 3 times as big probably 3 times as big as my apartment in Brooklyn. And, it's 2 stories. We have a beautiful pool. We have a beautiful new kitchen. My room is bigger than my room at home, my family's home in Georgia. So I was pleasantly surprised by that. I'm paying half what I paid in New York for my place now, and it's so much nicer. So that, yeah, it's nice to see that firsthand because you hear about that all the time, but
Right.
it really does, I think, make a difference in your just your life, your happiness level, your content level, when you have a nice space that you feel like is home for you and you can spread out and you can have people over. That does make a difference because you come home to that every day. And I think that's an important thing to consider. And I think at 22, 24, you're fine living anywhere, but I'm 26 now and I wanted a little more space and I wanted my car. So it's nice to have that.
Yeah, good for you. Last minute we have in the segment. In terms of the program, let's just wrap up with the program. This is about a year long, 9 to 12 months, and then you will try to find a career in investigative journalism. Is that the plan?
Right. So it's a year program, and we can either graduate next August, that'll be a year, or if we want to take off the summer and do something else like an internship or a job, something else, then we can graduate in December. So they'll just have one graduation ceremony in December where we'll all be together. So yeah, the plan after this is I have done a lot of thinking about what I want to be doing and where I could see myself contributing a lot and also being happy and growing. And I want to move away from the digital only sites that are, sort of more geared toward millennials. I think that was a great stepping platform for myself and a great way to learn how to write quickly and accurately. But I'd like to move more toward the legacy papers, like the Atlanta Journal-Constitution would be my top choice. And it's also in my home state. I love the work they've done. I love the old school feel. The reason I love journalism is being able to go out into the community and meet people and talk to them and tell their stories. And a lot of times when you're in a digital publication in New York, you're kind of stuck in a in a tower and you call people. And some people love that, and we need people who love that because that's also great journalism. But for me, that is not my strengths, and it's not what I enjoy. I enjoy being out and about all day and then coming back and writing my stories. And I also like more local news like the Atlanta Journal because you're usually a lot of times the only person with that story. And that feels so great to be thinking, if I wasn't here, the story might not have been done. Whereas when you're at a sort of digital publication, ones I previously worked at, there's usually, 50 other stories that are similar to yours, and you guys are sort of grabbing from each other. I don't want to be grabbing from other places to build my story. I want to do it myself through my own sourcing and through my own research. So yeah, that's probably I'd like to move there.
Yeah. Well, Natalie, it's a pleasure seeing you. Congratulations on the move to Phoenix and to the Cronkite School of Journalism. And we will certainly keep in touch and have you on from time to time. We'll be checking in and look forward to you doing some investigative reporting coming up very soon. Best of luck.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Hope you found it interesting and helpful. Hey, have a financial topic or someone of interest that you think we should interview? Drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the news in retirement, markets, technology, personal finance, and so much more, check out today's edition of The Morning Pulse. So until tomorrow, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.